Hello and welcome to Kain & Company. I'm David Kain, and today I'm going to be joined by a divisional vice president with AutoTrader. His name is Stephane Ferri, and he'll be talking about a new AutoTrader study that's been done to talk about consumer behavior online. So let's get right to it. Oh, I'm so pleased to be joined today by my dear friend Stephane Ferri, a divisional vice president with AutoTrader. Stephane, welcome to Kain & Company. I'm thrilled to have you on the show today.
Well, I know you and I have talked about it for a long time, so it's a treat to be here. I'm glad we were able to connect.
Excellent. And it looks like by the flag behind you, you're in the great state of Texas?
I am. I'm in the Big D, as we like to refer it, the big state of Texas, Dallas proper.
Excellent. There we go. So what I'd love to cover this morning, if you're okay with it, is let's talk about some of the latest research that AutoTrader's been doing to find out how consumers shop online.
Well, that's awesome. Great lead-in. David, we're really excited. We have a research paper in our 17-year history of what we like to lead in the industry in automotive. When Google came out with the Zero Moment of Truth, it conducted 500 interviews by a third party. This one that was just done is titled Car Buyer of the Future. It is 4,002. Don't ask me why it was 4,002, but it is 4,002. And it's really deep information and actionable data that's really great for clients and for consumers to get a better understanding of the way digital retailing and customer handling should occur in the future.
I understand. Well, it's interesting. So reveal. Tell us what kind of findings you came up with.
You know, I would say there are 5 really big takeaways. The first one being, which should come as no surprise to anyone, is how people should test drive cars, that the process is broke, that asking for all the information from the consumer, riding with them, the fact that we're at the dealerships that we tell the consumer which car is best for them could single-handedly be the worst thing you could do to a consumer. And you might ask the question, why? Well, It's pretty simple. When consumers are doing research before the purchase of a car, we now know they are in excess of 16 hours of online research. Wow. So when this occurs, believe me, they've gone through the steps. They've visited 8 to 9 websites on average, which is up over last year's counts. So the veracity in which they consume data online to do research, and in turn, when the consumer's doing test drives at the dealership, the last thing the dealership should be telling the consumer is which car is best for them. Sure. Because they already feel that they're more in tune, more knowledgeable than the average retail car salesman at the dealership, especially for their needs. So that was one of the biggest takeaways right away. So that crosses the borders of operations, best practices, 12 steps to delivery. You know, you travel just as much as I do to many dealerships, and I bet you have seen many dealerships change this process. I know of even a small dealership in Birmingham, Alabama. I was just there 2 weeks ago, and their process is quite unique. You tell them which 5 cars to pull forward, and that you can go test drive those cars all day long.
Wow.
Bring them back to the dealership and let them decide which cars you want.
Would that be a Toyota store?
It would not be a Toyota store, but it is a Highline store that's doing excess of 400 units per month.
Wow.
Mostly Highline.
Excellent. Good for them. Yeah. What a unique way to approach it. And I think, you know, we were also reading just yesterday about the virtual reality simulators and some of the stuff that technology companies are starting to pioneer. And I think we've got to make that test drive process more friendly. And I think that's a really clever approach. So what's the second reason?
Well, before we get to the second one, I want to tell you that I don't think it's limited to dealerships and consumers. Buick, right, has been running ads on TV to actually the first OEM ever to make an announcement to the consumer across traditional media to say, you have 24 hours to test drive it. And one of the ads is pretty cute, right? A married couple, the wife walks up to the husband. He goes, when you're done test washing it, let me know when you're done because I'm ready to go take it test shopping.
Yeah, I love that commercial.
Look at it this way. The industry is fully aware that that part of the process is broke. And even the OEMs are going to get into the game of changing how test drives are done at dealerships.
Yeah, no question. So when you look at the other parts of the research project, what other items stuck out at you?
Well, I'll jump into probably one of the meatiest ones, which is compression, right? Every one of our clients, mine, yours, deals with it each and every day as margin compression. Have you heard that this past week?
I'll hear that tomorrow, and I'll hear that every week for the next 26.
Correct. So I think our task, yours, ours, especially within Cox Automotive, what we will be looking to do in the future is to help our dealer clients work to improve margin compression. Now, margins get compressed from the consumer when there's a lack of value. Right?
Yes.
So what do we know more than anything right now? We know that there are more units going through fewer retailers. And so we have a false sense at the dealerships that things are good. And what I would challenge any dealer is to always remember that retail automotive since 1970 is very cyclatory. Right? Peaks and valleys, camelbacks, statistically relevant. And we're either on the ascent, plateau, or the descent.
Yes.
And many would argue that we're going back down the descent. So what did we learn out of 2008? To be a better operator, to be leaner, and to provide better service. Because if you just go back 15 years ago, the margins used to be from here.
Yes.
Now today we negotiate from here.
Yes. And the consumer perception is that we've still got those wide margins. And if you look on contemporary consumer-facing websites, you're still going to see some outdated articles. And there is not a lot of updated information that's consumer-facing that alerts them of this margin compression and markup compression, if you will.
Well, you just nailed it, right? So you look at some of the biggest retailers in the United States. AutoNation happens to partner with KBB because on their ads that they run across their stores in the dealerships and across the TV, I know traditional, but they're still in it. But what AutoNation does is that they pair their name with KBB to give third-party attribution. And what I think that really does for AutoNation, it allows them the opportunity to know whether or not their price point versus their competition is so where it relates for the consumer. Is it a good deal? Is it a fair deal? And you know what? I think it's okay to call out if you're a few $100s more expensive because you're going to allow yourself the opportunity to explain to the consumer because you'll make it into the consideration set. One of the top 5 things that came out of the research is that many people will pay more for the way that they want to transact. Now, for those of us that are 40 to 55 years old, we still make up 35% of the GDP, and we will pay in excess of $750 for a car transaction if it's done to the way that we want to transact. And that's another one of the things. David, you asked earlier about some of the other interesting things that we need to consider from that research. A lot of talk about millennials, right? That they're going to make up 25% of all car purchases by 2025.
Yes.
But on the second hand, that the part that we never talk about is that they're going to make up over 50% of the workforce by 2025.
Yes, that'll be remarkable. And I'm already trying to get acclimated to that, even in our small company, working with the millennials that we work with, and the training that goes into preparing dealerships for that adjustment in the workforce is going to be remarkable.
Yeah, and it's a huge opportunity for companies like you and ourselves to better educate the dealer on how those hours of operation are going to work moving in the future. Millennials are dead set on bringing back work-life balance. And, we created this work ethic that we have today, right? But I think millennials have been really calling out the opportunity to change this work-life balance and work on their hours, which will make it challenging for a lot of retailers. Now, the good news is there are many retailers that have changed the workforce already in their dealerships and in their go-to marketplace. Now, I don't know if that makes it good, bad, or indifferent, but I know that there has been greater success, increased margins and profitability, and greater opportunity to increase CSI, which leads to greater margin compression values, right? Because if the consumer's happier, you're leaving yourself in a better place to make more money and more gross.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, the points you've touched on are certainly valuable, and I believe they're somewhat transitional into preparing dealerships for the future. As you talk about 17.3 million new vehicles that were registered last year sold, and probably 50 million used vehicles. Dealers are in that state of adjustment, and I think it's always valuable to have companies like AutoTrader who are out there researching, and I'm very happy with the 4,002 other people who contributed to that valuable insight. Stephane, I know we're going to have to conclude this interview, but I look forward to having you back on because I want to learn a little bit more about where AutoTrader feels like the future is going and some of the predictive indexes that you can provide to our viewers so they can understand more about preparing for the future car buyer. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you, David.
Wow, that was some good information, and I can't wait to see more on that study. It is amazing how dealerships are always having to up their game when it comes to the changing consumer behavior. By far and away, we all know that the internet is not going away, and it's certainly, compared to other changes in our industry, provided plenty of challenges for us. So thank you very much for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you next week on Kain & Company.